what's happening in Nova Scotia. It's obviously been the buzz of many's ears, no matter where you are in Canada, about how people are wanting to invest in Nova Scotia. So who else to better ask than someone who has got 20 years of experience in the industry. Thank you so much to Stella for joining in to tell us about this new tax. Oh my God, again, another government solution. We got a tax.
This non-resident deed transfer tax is expected to have $15.5 million into the Nova Scotia government's pocket for this year. That, to me, is geared to the enormous amount of Airbnbs we have here, or short-term rentals. So the government, of course, is hoping that those properties are now going to be turned into long-term rental properties because we have such a shortage.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Canadian Real Estate Channel. My name is Kayla Andrade. I am the founder of Ontario Landlords Watch, and I'm a co-host on the Canadian Real Estate Channel. We're bringing you experts from coast to coast, bringing you the information that we think is going to be relevant to help you succeed in being a landlord, no matter where you are in Canada. So today we have our guest on again. You might have seen her from our previous videos. She's a wealth of knowledge, and I can't have her on enough just to pick her brain of how she can inform us what's happening in Nova Scotia. It's obviously been the buzz of many's ears, no matter where you are in Canada, about how people are wanting to invest in Nova Scotia. So who else to better ask than someone who has got 20 years of experience in the industry, as well as a property manager. And she also runs a very successful online Facebook page for Landlords of Nova Scotia, bringing the landlords and the tenants together in a community where they can discuss the issues and solutions. Thank you so much to Stella for joining in and talking about what's new, what's happening in Nova Scotia. It came over my feed, and I had to have you on the channel to tell us about this new tax. Oh my God, again, another government solution. We got a tax. Tell me, and I'll try not to cry.
All right. Well, I was crying when I saw this. Thanks for having me, by the way. It's called the non-resident deed transfer tax, and it's effective April 1st, 2022 here in Nova Scotia. And basically, it will implement a deed transfer tax of 5% of the value of the residential real estate property bought by a non-resident of Nova Scotia. So 5%, that's a lot of money. And what it does is basically trying to keep the housing stock that we have here for the Nova Scotians, rather than people from out of province, because as you know, since the pandemic, everybody wants to move to Nova Scotia, and it's a happening place. Our population growth is already surpassed the million and is expected to grow to 2 million in the year 2040. That's only 17 years from now. So to stop this enormous buy-up of properties from out of province and the bidding wars, they implemented a 5% deed transfer tax. There's an exemption for people that move to the province within 6 months of purchasing the property. So that way you can get from underneath it if your plan is really to move here and not just to invest here. Because of course, with the low interest rates, with the stock market being volatile, the gold price is high, where are you going to put your money if you have some money? That's the safest bet is real estate. And we are still one of the cheapest provinces in Canada to invest into real estate. So that's caused an enormous pressure on the market. The other tax that they implemented, so this non-resident deed transfer tax is expected to have $15.5 million into the Nova Scotia government's pocket for this year, 22 to 23 fiscal year. And then there's also a property tax of $2 per every $100 of assessed value. So think about that. $2 for every $100 of assessed property value. So if you have a property that's assessed for $300,000, which is quite low at the moment, then on every $100 you get an extra $2. So that's that was to cry for a lot of people. But again, this will not apply to properties that will be rented to Nova Scotians on a 12-month lease. So if it's rented to, and I don't know how the government's going to control all this, that's a miracle to me, really. But if you rent it to a Nova Scotia for 12 months, you have a 12-month lease, then you don't have to pay these $2 every $100 assessed value. So that, to me, is geared to the enormous amount of Airbnbs we have here, or short-term rentals. So the government, of course, is hoping that those properties are now going to be turned into long-term rental properties because we have such a shortage. If it works, I don't know. It can only work if they actually find a way to police it, and it's a question mark to me how they're going to do that.
I love their solutions. They come up with it, and then they don't come up with a game plan of how to control it. That's awesome.
How do you check if someone has a lease in place for 12 months to a Nova Scotian on a property that they buy? How do you do that? It also is not applying that for properties that are 3 units or more. So if you buy a triplex to invest, you don't have to worry about it. But if you buy a duplex, yeah, you're falling into this $2 per $100 assessed value, unless you rent to Nova Scotians. Now, the question I have for you and everybody is, if someone here wants to rent this unit, isn't that a Nova Scotian?
And how many people do we have of Nova Scotia willing to be landlords in their own province? You know, sometimes it does take out of province investors to buy up these properties for tenants who don't meet the requirements in order to buy their own. A lot of the federal government has always had their campaigns on home ownership. You know, it's right across the country. It's where it's always about home ownership. They're not talking about the renters who are forced to be renters, who cannot become homeowners either for the down deposit or it's because their credit, whatever the case may be. We do have to take that into consideration. So do you think this is obviously going to obviously help their supply or cause more Nova Scotians to be able to have buy their own property, or are we still going to see an influx of investors because of the rental, because of the market is definitely still priced where it's very appealing to the average investor?
People, what you see in the newspapers and what you read sometimes on the internet is like, oh, it works. The real estate market is cooling down. I don't see any evidence of it. There's still people calling me weekly about wanting to invest in Nova Scotia and looking for the ideal property. There's still overbidding going on. There's still Nova Scotians losing out because they know what the prices were 2 years ago. And they're saying, well, I'm not going to pay double for the place that was for sale 2 years ago for $200,000. Why would I pay $450,000? Well, that's reality, because we were lower than every other market in Canada. And now finally we're on the map. There's also better employment opportunities. There's 60 IT companies alone that came here and set up shop last year with higher paying wages. We were always undervalued and always underpaid. So our minimum wage is much lower, for example, than your minimum wage or in Alberta minimum wage. We still have the highest taxes that we pay here and the highest paid price of groceries from what I hear from people that come here from out west. But it is getting a little bit better. So if Nova Scotians want to become homeowners, it's possible, but I think they have to wait a little longer now because they have to go over that threshold of, I know this property was for sale 2 years ago for this, and now it's this, so I'm not buying it. That means someone from out of province is buying it. So what the government is hoping to do, I think, is if we implement this tax measure for out of province buyer, that property stays on the market longer and the price will go down, and maybe then a Nova Scotian can buy it. That's the only reasonable thought behind this, because again, how can you police this tax? How do you police it? Do you have to give it to Revenue Canada while you buy it? Do you have to sign a declaration, or
give your lease?
Send the lease? How are you going to do this?
And
I
that's
don't
the
see it.
part, like, I found it curious that, with that 5%, it's that you don't have to pay that unless you are going to be living in that property within 6 months or
Correct.
for 6 months. So is it a way for investors to come on in and buy it to live in it, and then they boogie back home because of different employment opportunities? Like, obviously there's always a loophole around every system, especially when the government created it.
There's definitely, I mean, that's something I didn't even think about, Kayla, but yeah, you're right.
You're welcome.
You can declare you live here and do not pay it and then move back. Or I don't know how.
But your mail
I really don't
is,
know how they're gonna police this, really. And who is an out of province buyer? Is it known, and is it put into your deed? How does this work? I have no idea, but that's for government to decide. Again, this seems to be a quite a quick put together kind of measurement, like, oh my God, we're bleeding, let's put a Band-Aid on this, and not really thought through.
oh, they're putting a Band-Aid on a bullet wound. That's
Exactly.
exactly what's happening. We have a
Yeah.
housing crisis across Canada. It's not just going to be directed at one different province. And I just haven't seen anything where they wouldn't want any type of investors. Now, of course, the federal government has have recently talked about banning foreign investors from buying properties for the next 2 years in Canada. So everyone's like, is that going to help the housing crisis? Is that going to bring units to be more affordable? And everyone's like, nope, it's such a small percentage of it. Yes, we have foreign investors buying up properties, leaving them empty, making their money based on the evaluation of the showing the appraisal of just leaving it empty, just the equity of it. And that is what's obviously going to cause, the government to bring this to light and try to stop these investors. And instead, it should be a free reign, in my opinion. We got to get our landlords out there building. We have to get them creating units within their current portfolio. If obviously the market is crazy in one spot, let's go into another spot to build that supply. And we need all hands on deck, because not all people want to be landlords. A lot of people are trying to get into the private lending, or they're playing in the stocks a little bit, or they're planning to get into the States because of the way that real estate is in certain provinces. So we really want to kind of help our government create the solution. But when they, like you said, when this information came to you, when did you know this information, that when you got light, and then when it became effective, or in effect? It was in March, at the end of March?
At the end of March, suddenly this new measure came on my feed, and I was like, what? And then what was interesting was immediately the prognosis of this. So the latest tax measure for the non-residents, they predict that it will bring $65.5 million per year extra into Nova Scotia government's pockets. So then you wonder, what's going to happen with these $65.5 million if they actually really get it, because I doubt it. As I said, you can't police it. So will they build new housing from that? What's going to happen with that money? So this is great if they get it, sure, if it helps the Nova Scotians. But
again, even if they build, let's say they took that money, let's say they build government housing, how is that incentive going to be with creating still the option of supply? It's going to be supply and demand. Does the government in Nova Scotia want to be the only housing providers? Is that to seem to be where the taxpayers are going to have to pay for it in the end, when you have the building, the managing, the maintaining, the subsidizing of government housing? Or do you want to work with private investors, people who want to have their boots on the ground to create these type of units, to put these, to take responsibility for the maintenance and for the utility? And yes, you should have some type of program to help people in hardship situations, so that it's not fully subsidized, but it's a program to really help people out in the time of need. So again, they're not reaching out to the proper people in order to get that, to get those out of the box thinking ideas, ways, because it's almost like the definition of insanity is doing the exact same thing and expecting different results, or still trying to fix a problem with the same mindset that created it. We have to get ourselves into this group of working with elected officials. And maybe Stella, maybe me and you, we have to put some pressure on our elected officials to get on a show with us and actually give us their thought process behind these new taxes that they're implementing on the rental housing industry, because it is going to obviously have its trickle effect to the tenants and could result in having higher rents.
And look at how other countries have solved this problem. If I look at what's happening, for example, in my country, the Netherlands, there are no private landlords out there under a certain amount of money. So what happens is you have children. So as soon as your child becomes 18, you have to write yourself in by a housing supply company. So the housing supply companies are government run, semi-government run. And basically, whoever is on the list first is going to come first. So there's housing for younger people. You can be there from 18 to 25. Then you have to go to a little bit larger home once you have a family, so that they supply the housing there. And it works really well because people are looking after their places. It's not like I can actually spot tenant occupied houses versus homeowner occupied houses real easily. You don't see that kind of difference down in the Netherlands. But the interesting part is it's not a social kind of thing, but everybody gets their turn. And it's not like, oh, the best one goes first, like the landlords here pick the best possible tenants and other ones that don't make as much money will never get it, or they have too many dogs or whatever will never get it. It's based on first come, first serve. And if it's your turn and it's your number, you're going to be offered 1 or 2 or 3 houses. You pick the one you like. And we have a small, tiny little country, but somehow everybody is able to get a house at some point. And there's no homelessness hardly ever. So look at that kind of example and how they do it abroad and how they have different rules for landlords. This is other thing is you have to be economically bound to an area in order to be able to live there. So for instance, if you're born in Amsterdam, you work in Amsterdam, you're going to live in Amsterdam and not 200 kilometers further down where there's a house available. What we see here is gentrification right now. People are moving out of Halifax. It's getting too expensive. They're moving to places like Truro or New Glasgow or on the South Shore, while their family is actually really here. So that means more transportation time, more cost to meet your parents or whatever. So it's keeping your family together too if you're economically bound. And that might be a solution. Who knows?
And that's the part too. We have a lot of, newcomers coming into the country, but where are we putting everybody? If we don't have enough housing, where they have to start utilizing the concept of immigration and not so much on taxes, because taxes, it ain't going to work. You're obviously just taking the money away from investors, and we don't even know what the elected officials are doing. But if we're seeing that they're going to put it into housing, they kind of been mismanaging it themselves. I think the government needs a property manager in order to help them manage their own current supply and how to keep growing it, because there is a lot of incentives, to try to help our landlords and our tenants, obviously. But the way that the current system is, from social housing to private housing to the needs of people with more complicated issues, definitely not trying. You got to be a certain type of person to want to invest in rentals, and we shouldn't be shying them away, especially just because from out of province. We do have a lot of people who, it's going to bring some growth into your province. But thanks,
Absolutely.
Stella. I can't even flabbergast what's going on there, because I know that it's obviously taxes is not going to be the solution. I really see that the increases, you put that 5% is going to obviously work itself into the rental rate down there, especially with the utilities that have increased. So we really need to, wake the elected officials up, try to have them more of a task force to listen to the small mom and pop landlords and even our tenants. They are very, it's unfortunate that they're sitting there and holding the bag on this, because it is obviously affecting them, and the cost of living increasing. And we're just not seeing those changes fast enough. Stella, I can't thank you enough for coming on and telling us about the update with the taxes, and hopefully it still can still be fought. Still work our landlords in Nova Scotia. Send out your messages to the elected officials, explaining to them how this is going to not be good for Nova Scotia, as well as how it's not going to be good for their housing industry, and really get yourself involved into advocacy and what our elected officials are doing at all levels of government. And that's the one thing that we can do to protect our housing supply, because it is obviously decreasing. We need to work ourselves into giving different issues to the elected officials and come at them with solutions at the same time. Stella, how can someone find you if they want more information? Because I know we blew quick about what's happening with the taxes, and we always want to stay on top of what's happening in Nova Scotia. How can people find you?
Contact me through the website letsrent.ca, as well as the Facebook page Landlords Nova Scotia, or Google the business VDL Property Management online, and you'll have me right there. Thank you.
We'll put all of our links in the comments below. And if we want your thought process, on this whole taxing thing, and can we see it traveling to other provinces in Canada? So leave your comment below, smash the like button, and we'll make sure that we bring you more great content to help you succeed as being a landlord, no matter where you are in Canada. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Kayla Andrade, and my guest, Stella Van Der Lugt.
Thanks so much, Kayla.
Thank you.
See you next time.